Right, so first let's get you some developments coming in, because on the sidelines of the ongoing G7 summit, Prime Minister Narendra Modi held bilateral talks with his Japanese counterpart, wherein he also tweeted a picture of the meeting which took place, saying that had an excellent meeting with Prime Minister of Japan this morning. We reviewed the full range of India-Japan relations and also discussed the focus areas of India's G20 presidency and Japan's G7 presidency towards making our planet better. So that's the message coming in as far as the bilateral meeting between both the countries are concerned, with Prime Minister not only meeting his Japanese counterpart but also the other leaders who have come to attend this summit. So Prime Minister Modi held a bilateral meeting with PM Kishida, and this was the second meeting this year following the visit of Prime Minister Kishida to India in March previously. And Prime Minister also thanked PM Kishida for planting in Hiroshima the Bodhi sapling that had been gifted by PM Modi in March this year. He also recalled the Indian Parliament commemorated every year the Hiroshima Day and noted that Japanese diplomats were always present on the occasion. Now, both the leaders discussed ways to synergize efforts of their respective G20 and also the G7 presidency. And on the other hand, Prime Minister also stressed the need to highlight the concerns and priorities of Global South. While the two leaders exchanged views on contemporary regional developments, they also discussed deepening cooperation in the Indo-Pacific, and the leaders agreed on ways to further strengthen the bilateral, special strategic and global partnership. So of course a crucial day wherein this summit is going to begin at around noon today. But before that, several bilaterals have been lined up, wherein Prime Minister Narendra Modi is going to hold crucial talks with several world leaders. Let me go across to my colleagues to enjoy for more on this. To enjoy, of course, a crucial day when the G7 summit is going to happen. But before that, Prime Minister held a bilateral talk with his Japanese counterpart. How do you see this meeting coming in?
Well, it's a very important day, as you rightly said. First of all, of course, there's a G7, but not only that, the Quad is happening. And yes, Kishida is particularly important because he's the host. He is the one who has invited Prime Minister Narendra Modi and India to the G7. Let's not forget that India is not part of the G7. India is not a member of the G7. But because of India's growing stature and because of the close ties that Japan and India have, and of course that Prime Minister Modi is emerging as an international leader, he has been invited, and it's a particularly important meeting because Japan and India are now extremely close economically, strategically. Let's not forget Japan and India are part of the Quad for one. They are doing Malabar together. There's considerable economic cooperation between the two countries. The amount of Japanese investment in India is increasing every year. So for all these reasons, strategic, political, the presence of China, the threat of China, the growing problems with China in the East China Sea and in the Ladakh area, all these reasons have made the relationship between India and Japan particularly important. And naturally, quite naturally, we would be invited by Kishida. And being the host, it's absolutely imperative to have a bilateral.
Yes, of course. And also on the other hand, speaking of another aspect, the big elephant in the room will remain China and Russia, who have not been invited for the summit. And also it needs to be seen how the G7 is going to come upon a conclusion when it comes to, of course, when it comes to the China's assertiveness, which is going to be the main focus of this summit.
Yes, Russia and China, at least for India, completely different. Russia remains a close friend, a partner, and important in terms of defense, in terms of oil supplies, in terms of civil nuclear energy, in terms of space. These are areas where India and Russia cooperate apart from political areas, and India and Russia remain great friends. And that is a point that India has told the world. But as far as China is concerned, China is continuing to be a threat. We know what happened 2 years ago in East Ladakh. And this is something which has hurt the relationship tremendously. This is a problem that the West faces, the Americans face, and all the other American allies, whether it's Japan itself, where the meeting is being held, whether it's the Philippines, whether it's South Korea, many other countries face the threat of China. So China will...
So, of course, the meeting coming in at a time when many issues are going to be at the key focus. One, of course, the Ukraine-Russia war, and also the authoritarian powers of China and Russia that are going to dominate the agenda. Well, thank you, Srinjoy, for joining in. But first of all, listen in this message coming in from Prime Minister Modi's side, straight from Japan.
हिरोशिमा, ये नाम सुनते ही आज भी दुनिया थरथरा उठती है, कांप जाती है। G7 समिट की मेरी इस विजिट में मुझे सबसे पहले पूज्य महात्मा गांधी की प्रतिमा का अनावरण का सौभाग्य मिलना, ये अपने आप में एक बहुत ही बड़ा सुयोग है। आज विश्व क्लाइमेट और आतंकवाद की लड़ाई से जूझ रहा है। पूज्य बापू के आदर्श क्लाइमेट के साथ जो लड़ाई है, उसे जीतने का उत्तम से उत्तम मार्ग है। उनकी जीवन शैली प्रकृति के प्रति सम्मान, समन्वय और समर्पण का उत्तम उदाहरण रही है। उसी प्रकार से बुद्ध और गांधी की धरती, जिसने विश्व को शांति का संदेश दिया, हिरोशिमा की धरती पर, और जापान जो कि भगवान बुद्ध के विचारों से पल्लवित पोषित है, वहां पूज्य बापू की प्रतिमा अहिंसा के, करुणा के उन विचारों को आगे ले जाने में बहुत बड़ी प्रेरणा बनेंगे। मेरे लिए खुशी की बात है कि जापान के प्रधानमंत्री पिछले दिनों जब भारत आए थे, तो मैंने उन्हें बौद्ध गांव से लाया हुआ एक पवित्र वृक्ष का पौधा दिया था। और आज उन्होंने मुझे बताया कि उन्होंने उस बोधि वृक्ष का पौधा था, वो हिरोशिमा के गार्डन में लगाया है, ताकि हिरोशिमा याद आते ही शांति के महत्व दुनिया समझ सकती है। मैं पूज्य बापू को आदरपूर्वक श्रद्धांजलि देता हूं। मैं हिरोशिमा का मेयर का, यहां की काउंसिल का, जापान गवर्नमेंट का हृदय से आभार व्यक्त करता हूं कि उन्होंने पूज्य बापू की प्रतिमा को यहां पर स्थान दिया और मुझे आज उसका लोकार्पण करने का अवसर दिया है। हम सब पूज्य बापू के आदर्शों को जानने का, जीने का और जगत के कल्याण के रास्ते पर चलने का प्रयास करें, यही उनको सच्ची श्रद्धांजलि होगी।
So it is a jam-packed schedule for Prime Minister, who is in Japan as part of his three-nation tour. The Prime Minister will be attending back-to-back bilateral with countries including France and Ukraine also. And apart from this, he will be attending G7 annual summit. Now the G7 consists of Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, UK and the US, with India making a strong global presence. It has been invited as a guest country for the summit, and earlier in the day yesterday he held bilaterals with his Japanese counterpart. He also unveiled the statue of Mahatma Gandhi, sending a strong message of peace. On the other hand, India's participation at the summit is structured around two formal sessions. First is today and the second is on May 21st. The first session will be on food, health, development and gender equality, and the second summit will be on climate, energy and environment. Now a third session is planned around the theme of a peaceful, stable and prosperous world. Now in an interview with a Japanese publication, Prime Minister highlighted the burning issues. He vowed to amplify the voices and concerns of the global South nations, asserting that India's experience would resonate strongly at the G7 meeting. Revealing his vision for Quad, he said that the focus will be on fostering a free, open, inclusive Indo-Pacific region. And as G7 leaders gather at China's doorsteps, Prime Minister asserted that peace and tranquility at border areas is essential for normal ties with China. But all eyes will be on the Modi-Zelensky bilateral that will be held on the sidelines of the G7 summit, and it will be the first in-person meeting between the two leaders after the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Now India always has been a proponent of dialogue, and even in its latest message, Prime Minister asserted that India stands on the side of peace and that cooperation and collaboration should define our times and not conflict. Prime Minister will also attend the Quad summit, which will take place in Hiroshima, and along with sharing strategic assessments, the Quad will welcome new forms of Quad cooperation on secure digital technology, submarine cables, infrastructure capacity building and maritime domain awareness. Now this meeting is important as the Quad is assembling on China's doorsteps.